Hello and welcome everybody back to Scottish Independence Podcasts. Bit of a solemn topic this time. We have been at the 79th anniversary of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombs. This was at the invitation of Scottish CND, who were putting on several events around the country to mark the anniversary, as they do every year. So we went along to the one in Glasgow. It was very moving.
Yes, it was. I was so surprised just how much I was moved by it. I mean, I was almost in tears at one or two places. And actually, it was because the speakers were so good, and in particular, talking from personal family experience of back then. It was just amazing. Just really good.
Before everybody switches off and goes, oh, well, that sounds pretty depressing. It was actually quite uplifting in a way, because the recognition that this must not happen again, and the stories of the goodness that comes out from people faced with these terrible situations. There was singing, there was lovely speeches, there was a bit of storytelling of events from different perspectives.
Yes, I mean, that is a point to make, isn't it? It was very moving, but actually it was also uplifting, because you could have a sense of how human beings can be at their best.
Yes, indeed. One of the main speakers was the Lord Provost of Glasgow, and we were delighted to invite her into the studio to tell us a bit more about the Mayors for Peace programme and how she got involved with that event. And welcome to our guest, Jacqueline McLaren, Lord Provost of Glasgow.
The Mayors for Peace programme, I think, was 1984. I don't know who the Lord Provost was at the time when the Mayor for Hiroshima actually contacted Glasgow City Council to be part of the Mayors for Peace programme. Now, over the years since then, there's not been much activity with previous Lord Provosts that I remember. Anyway, as being a CND supporter, all my life. So I don't remember Glasgow ever being involved in doing anything. But the Mayors for Peace programme, the emails kept coming in during the first year I was the Lord Provost. And I've said to the officers, what is this programme? Are we involved? Oh, well, we just get the emails, we don't really get involved. And I'm looking at the activity that actually goes on in the world. There's lots of activity of all the nations that are actually part of the Mayors for Peace programme. So they've got school projects all over the world, documenting what's happened there and keeping it as a reminder to young people of actually what took place there. And there's been drawing competitions, art competitions all over, in Europe and stuff like that. So it's quite a big programme, and we're actually been part of it. So the Mayor of Manchester got an email from the Hiroshima Mayor, I think the year before last, and they said that would he be interested in taking some of the ginko seeds? And he wrote to all the mayors that are part of it in Britain, and right away I said, oh, absolutely. We must take these seeds. We actually have a ginko tree in Botanic Gardens, which is quite a massive tree, which is near the outer end where the glass houses are. So I contacted the NRS, as we call them, and they said, oh yeah, we've got a Japanese curator here, and I went, have we? That's so let's get the ball rolling. So I met with Hiro very quickly. We discovered that Hiro was over from Japan, and he was here in secondment for a few years. We got I think there was about 10 or 20 seeds initially, but they didn't all germinate, and we only had like half a dozen. I went to see them, we planted the seeds, and a few months later I went back. They were little saplings.
Fantastic.
Only got about 6. And then he says, I'm going home to see my mum, which was kind of last November. I'm going home to see my mum. And I says, well, when you get there, can you go and see the Mayor of Hiroshima and take this bottle of whiskey with you from and he asked me to make a little origami. We managed it, but Hiro helped. And we sent lovely letters to him and said that we're very much on board. Glasgow's very much on board with being part of this Mayors for Peace programme. And during all that time, Scottish CND, Jean Anderson had contacted me, and she said, I was reading in the newspaper about these ginko saplings, and we're very interested in finding out more about this. And I said, well, why don't you come in? We can have a meeting in my office and see what you can bring to the table with us as part of the city, a city project. I says, I was thinking about creating a peace garden with these ginko seeds. But it'd be good if we could get more. But when Hiro went over to the mayor in Japan and Hiroshima, he came back with more seeds. We did get more seeds, so he is working on them still. But when Jean came in, we had a meeting, Hiro, myself, officers, and I said, look, we need to create something for the anniversary, which is next year.
That's the 80th one, isn't it?
Yeah, so next year's anniversary, both for Glasgow and for the Hiroshima. So 80 years next year, and I said to Jean, what could we do? I was thinking about a peace garden with some nice benches, and very quickly Jean says, well, the Scottish CND, we might be able to put a plaque there as well. And I says, yeah, the more the merrier. If we get a plaque there and we get one of these QR codes that tells the story of why we're here and why we're part of the Mayors for Peace programme. It's a great honour to be part of it during my term of doing that. And it's something that I'll look back on and say, well, that's there for other people to see 10 or 20 or 30 years down the line. That garden will be there. The ginko seeds will have matured by then, and they're going to grow tall long before you and I are here, girls. We'll be away by then. There'll be massive trees in the Botanic Gardens and maybe dotted around some of the 7 parks in Glasgow. There might be park with a plaque beside it, and the idea was to get some children within the vicinity of that area, which there's 2 schools in Rockhill and a couple of schools in the Hill Headward, to be part of the initial project. And then when we launch it next year, the young people will bring what they've created to the table. I had thought about doing, whilst we're doing the Peace Garden, maybe creating a kind of peace memorial tree. There's a lovely tree that's probably beside there that the kids can put our hopes for the future, future for the world, things like that. Ribbons that we can tie on at the same time, and maybe they might want to tie them onto the benches and things like that, and try and make it a place where you can go and sit and just reflect on the horrors of war. But all being well, I'll be here until 2027, but next year's a big year for Glasgow's 850th birthday. So there's projects like the Mayors for Peace one that I really want to highlight, that the city has been doing it for a long time, but we're going to actively be involved with them again.
I mean, you're obviously really enthusiastic about it. I mean, I'm not surprised actually as well. So I live near Victoria Park, so I was sitting the other day thinking, oh, I can think of at least 2 spaces in Victoria Park where that would work. Where that would work actually.
That's the thing, Marlene. We can actually probably do that. There'll be scope to do that, as part of this programme, and the scope to actually get kids in near schools near Victoria Park. Primary schools there to be part of. They can put their ribbons on trees nearby and say, this is our peace, this is what we want for the world, this is what we think peace should be in the world. And it's really important, I think, for the young people. The young people are the key here, because they need to know what's happened in the past, so that it will never be replicated in the future.
Getting younger folk, and especially school kids, to become aware of that, and just to have a space where they can say what sort of world they want. It's fantastic.
Hiro has been absolutely fantastic with the Mayors for Peace programme. When I first met him, he actually told me the story about his mum. His mum was very young, about maybe 12 or 13 or something at the time. His mum was young, but his mum remembers, because where Hiro lives, they weren't affected by the mushroom cloud, because the family lived in a dip. So the mushroom cloud went over and didn't go into the dip. The people who were affected were outside that area. And she actually remembers seeing people with all the burns and actually helping. It was obviously a massive operation of all the communities stepping up to help out and all that. She remembers feeding people and looking after people who were, badly burned. And I think because of that impact on her life as a young person, she's remembered. And she's actually told that story to Hiro lots of times throughout his life. And we're very grateful to have Hiro here to actually give us all that information, because we don't know, unless you're involved in things, you don't, you wouldn't know about it. He remembers the story so well. His mum's still alive. It's really good to have him on board and working with us. So he's our kind of real link to the Mayor of Hiroshima as well.
I had a quick look on the Mayors for Peace website, because I hadn't heard about it at all before. So I thought, oh, we'll just have a wee look there. I mean, it's really impressive what's on it, and that there's a program going forward that's got lots of details on it. And yeah, you know, obviously some of it is about, you know, nuclear disarmament and awareness of, you know, what happened in Japan at the end of the Second World War. But there's a lot more, isn't there, about climate change and sustainability? And I was just really impressed. And there's something to be said for people like yourself who are working at, you know, a certain level within local communities, all of you linking up. That's also can have a big effect. Those ideas you've got for the gardens and getting the local kids involved, it's all a way of kind of nibbling away at the edges of things.
Yeah.
And
I was interested in how many places around were having a ceremony. Faslane, obviously, the Aberdeen, Arran, Irvine, Paisley, Stirling, Ayr, Kilmarnock, you know, really widespread programme of events. And that's for the 79th anniversary. So what are you looking forward to for the 80th? Is it going to be much bigger?
Well, I think it will be. If they've been doing that this year, I'm hoping that there will be bigger events across the country. I mean, there should be. The ones in Arran and all that, I think, are kind of regular events. But if we promote it more and talk about it more, what's in the press more, they might start taking notice. That's when you might get the younger people, a bit more activism with the younger people. We remember it as a young person, as an activist, as a young person. I was always very much a person who wanted rid of nuclear weapons. But in the meantime, we'll carry on with little programmes like the Masterpiece, do things like the ginko seeds, get the children involved, put the QR codes in so people remember all the horrors of war. These are the things I think that we have to keep reminding ourselves about. And we have to remind the younger people, because if we don't remind them, then everything will be forgotten, and then people will just say, well, why do we talk about it now? It was 80 years ago.
exactly.
We need to keep talking about it. We need to keep moving it forward, and we need to keep getting other people on board to have the same view as people like us who want a nuclear-free world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's just a lovely idea, the Peace Garden. I think it's going to be wonderful to have those. And if Glasgow leads the way, then they could be springing up in all sorts of Scottish cities, couldn't they?
Yes.
Yeah, lovely idea.
Hopefully you'll be at the launch, so make sure you'll be at the launch.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely to come along to that. That would be fantastic. Yeah.
August the 6th, we'll aim for having all the benches ready, the Peace Garden, plants planted, and the young people coming with their memory, what they'd like on these memory trees to remember. Work still to be done with the behind the scenes with officers in the council, but while I'm here, I'll drive.
Good for you.
I'm sure they're just going to go, the Lord Provost wants it, we better just go along with it. It's been lovely talking to you. Really good to find out some more about the background to all of that. And also, it was nice to hear that connection between you and Hiro.
All the things that were meant to be at that time, that's what happened. All the bricks fell into place at the right time.
Yeah.
Thanks to Jacqueline McLaren, the Lord Provost, for joining us there. Very interesting to hear a bit more background about the project. And it sounds wonderful. The Gardens for Peace sounds wonderful. So we'll go over to the Glasgow event now. Just be aware, it was outside. It was outside the Kelvingrove Art Gallery. So there is a little bit of traffic noise in the background, but I think that it's not too bad.
It's actually okay, folks. Fiona's done some magic with it. It's fine.
I've tried, but we'll see. You can let us know what you think.
Yeah, I think you'll find it as moving as we found it when we were there.
On the 8th of August, we gathered under the Peace Tree at Kelvingrove Art Gallery.
I'm David Peutherer, Chair of Glasgow CND. It's very good to see so many of you turned out today, especially on a weekday. This is the day between the anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and the bombing of Nagasaki in 1945. Two events which caused an estimated 220,000 deaths before the end of the year, which is about 4 months. Etienne already said this: nuclear weapons are unique. Their impact is primarily on innocent civilian non-combatants, particularly women and children. The radiation effect persists for generations after their detonation. They are intrinsically indiscriminate, largely uncontrollable, and above all, they are instruments of mass murder on a scale unparalleled in human history. In 2018, the International Committee of the Red Cross said they are the most terrifying weapon ever invented. No weapon is more destructive. No weapon causes such unspeakable human suffering. Okay, and the other quote I was going to give you is Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations in 2022, said that elimination would be the greatest gift we could bestow on future generations. Today is one in which to remember all those who were killed or suffered from the bombing in 1945, but also one to renew our commitment to do everything we can to eliminate the most immoral, most terrifying and most murderous weapons ever invented. I'm delighted to say that today our first and principal speaker is Lord Provost of Glasgow, Jacqueline McLaren. The Lord Provost is a long-standing supporter of SCND's objectives and justifiably proud to be Lord Provost of a city which is a member of Mayors for Peace, a nuclear-free local authority and a signatory to the ICANN Cities Appeal. Lord Provost,
thank you, Dave. Good morning. It's a great pleasure actually to welcome the Scottish Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament and supporters to Kelvingrove Park. We gather in peace by the peace tree behind me, planted to commemorate the atrocious atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki almost 80 years ago. The more recent 2011 Fukushima tragedy only serves to strengthen our resolve. Friends, only 66 years and 100 kilometres separate these disasters. Today's event, one of similar services being held across the country. Glasgow has a proud anti-nuclear campaigning history, stretching back more than 3 decades. This commitment has never waned, for we continue to provide the administrative and secretarial support to the Scottish activities of nuclear-free authorities, and Glasgow councillors continue to represent the council in this movement. And their commitment to the nuclear-free local authorities agenda continues with their membership of Mayors for Peace, which has recently been resurrected. Founded by the mayors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, with the ultimate goal of achieving a nuclear-free world. Glasgow is fortunate to have the expertise of Hiroshima from Japan, whose mother witnessed the radioactive mercury cloud. Hiro is here, nurturing seeds taken from a ginko tree that survived the atomic bomb in Hiroshima, known as the survivor tree. It continues to grow in Hiroshima's famous sugarcane garden. This important initiative is part of our international Mayors for Peace project. These precious survivor seeds distributed to affiliated cities as a lasting and living memorial to peace. Glasgow is proud to be part of this. We're very grateful to Hiro for taking care of the saplings. The trees and everything they represent are hugely significant, particularly for Hiro and his countrymen and women. A lasting legacy to remind us of the futility of war. The next year is the 80th anniversary, and Hiro and I, with some officers, along with Jean at CND, are hatching a plan, coming up with something that we can remember for a long time, and we're going to include schools in that project, and we're going to create a peace garden. We don't know where we're doing it yet, where we're going to have it, we're still talking about it, and Jean's very much involved with that, but there'll be information beside this new peace garden for people to come and reflect on all things about the atomic bombing. So we look forward to seeing you all next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming and bringing us such good news. I think a peace garden is a great idea. Very positive response to the heat.
Yes. I think it's about raising awareness, and I think a lot of young people, I mean, unless you're interested in history, you won't really read about it unless you really get a specific interest. So I think it's good to start at the schools level to try and reintroduce the past and whatever. We never ever forget it. And the children should carry that on into their families and the other schools in the city. But we're looking forward to next year, aren't we, Hiro? Yeah.
Our experience, I have to say, is talking to young people. Hardly any of them know much about it. Could we perhaps have a minute's piece of this thing?
And the next speaker is Hiro Shimai, who is looking after the ginko seedlings at the Botanic Gardens.
Hiro, speak to us. Thank you very much.
This is Hiro. Thank you very much for inviting me this event today. At 8:15 on the 6th of August, 1945, Hiroshima was destroyed by an atomic bomb. All buildings and trees were burned by a few thousand degree heat waves from the explosion of the bomb. By the end of the year, over 200,000 people died. At that time, people believed that no trees could grow for 100 years in the city due to radioactivity. Miraculously, a few trees survived and developed new shoots. A ginko was one of those. As a part of the Mayors for Peace project, we received a seed collected from a ginko tree in Hiroshima. Some of them successfully germinated, and seedlings grew in Glasgow Botanic Gardens. The ginko will be planted in the Peace Garden. I hope that ginko will be a symbolic tree, not repeating the devastating nuclear disaster. Finally, I would like to say thank you for helping this project to Glasgow CND, Scottish CND, Peace Education Scotland, and Lord Provost. Thank you very much.
Hope none of you object to having your photographs posted on social media, because this will go to the International Campaign Against Nuclear Weapons for Vastus.
And after the photo shoot, we next had a song from Protest in Harmony.
Lay down my sword and shield, down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I ain't gonna study war no more, I ain't gonna study war no more, I ain't gonna study war no more.
The next speaker is Jean Anderson from Glasgow and Scottish CND.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jean Anderson from Glasgow CND, Scottish CND and SNP CND. I like labels. Anyway, today we mark, as you know, the 79th anniversary of the use of nuclear weapons by the United States against Japan. Hiroshima was bombed on the 6th of August and Nagasaki was bombed on the 9th in 1945. Those two bombs killed over 210,000 people, including some 38,000 babies and children. These deaths happened in an instant, not over months or years of war, but in one moment of horror. We have the report on the effect of the nuclear blast in Hiroshima from a doctor who witnessed the aftermath. Dr. Marcel Junot's telegrams make chilling reading. He reported, visited Hiroshima, inspected 2 emergency hospitals, conditions appalling, city wiped out, 80% of all hospitals destroyed or seriously damaged. The conditions are beyond description. Effect of bomb mysteriously serious. Many victims apparently recovering suddenly suffer fatal relapse due to decomposition of white blood cells and other internal injuries, now dying in great numbers. Estimated still over 100,000 wounded in emergency hospitals, sadly lacking bandages and medicines. Reminds you of Gaza, but so much worse. And that was the effect of just one bomb. As David said earlier, was 1/8 of the power of one Trident warhead. Each of the 4 Trident submarines can carry up to 8 missiles on board, and each missile can have up to 5 warheads. That's 40 nuclear bombs in each submarine. And each of these nuclear bombs is 8 times stronger than the bombs that hit Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's enough to cause 320 Hiroshimas and more. Enough to create a nuclear winter and destroy the Earth's climate. When the bombs fall, the face of the planet will be forever changed. Just now, vital international agreements to reduce nuclear weapons are being ignored. Budgets for the production of new nuclear weapons are growing. Tensions among nuclear armed nations are rising to levels not seen since the Cold War. As the mayors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki warned, we are badly off course in our efforts to honour the plea of the Hibakushas and end the nuclear threat. CND UK's Kate Hudson said this week that we cannot avoid the fact that we are closer than ever to nuclear war. The war in Ukraine is greatly increasing the risk. So too is NATO's location of upgraded nuclear weapons across Europe, including Britain, and Russia's sighting of similar weapons in Belarus, for instance. Irresponsible talk suggesting that tactical nuclear weapons could be deployed on a battlefield, as if radiation could be constrained in a small area, makes nuclear use more likely. And our own government is leading the charge on greater militarisation and is in denial about the dangers it is unleashing. It is a bad time for humanity and for all forms of life on Earth. It's time for us to stand up and say no. So it's generally agreed that we're living in a time of extraordinary nuclear dangers. What have we done to meet it? Quite a lot, actually. Activists all over the world came together to create the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons that David mentioned earlier. The Ban Treaty, as we call it. In 2017, the UN adopted the Ban Treaty, and it came into force in 2021. It makes it illegal for any country which signs the treaty to have nuclear weapons or to allow them to cross their territory. That will increase. There are about 200 countries in the world, and 93 of them have already signed the treaty. That will increase slowly but surely, and the 9 nuclear weapon states will feel increasing pressure. The Ban Treaty gives us hope, and so does the fact that you're all here today, activists for peace, doing what you can. Glasgow CND's Reclaim the Clyde campaign is gaining support and interest as it spreads the words about the monsters on our coast 28 miles away. This is a very necessary effort, as we found that not everyone knows where the bombs and submarines are. There's a lack of awareness, especially amongst our young people. But we'll fight against the lies and the pretense that it's all okay. We'll fight against the fiction that our governments know what they're doing and that they act in our best interests and in the best interests of the earth. We need to remember and to talk about the horrors of war and the immense destructive power of nuclear bombs. And we will tell our young people and help them to carry forward our work for peace. Part of that task is embodied in today's very welcome announcement by our Provost for Peace about the creation of the Peace Gardens. Glasgow CND and Scottish CND and Peace Education Scotland are proud to collaborate with Glasgow City Council, and we look forward to doing what we can to help make the Peace Gardens places of education about the horrors of the past, but not just that. We'll also represent hope for a better future. We'll educate our young people, we'll explode the many myths about nuclear weapons, and we'll teach them that there are better ways of conflict resolution. We will take our knowledge into local schools, and we'll involve the youngsters in the work of creating the gardens. We'll give them tools to fight the madness with. Truth and knowledge will be the weapons that we pass on to them to make a better future. The story of the ginko tree seeds embodies our hopes, and as the saplings grow in Glasgow, Botanic's Peace Garden, the message will spread through our children and their families and everyone who sees the garden and the future gardens. Finally, on behalf of all the people who continue to fight for a saner world, we thank Glasgow City Council and especially our Provost for Peace, Jacqueline McLaren, for this garden initiative. It will help us keep up the fight.
Now we have veteran activist and author Maggi Sale.
I don't really know Maggie. I know that she has been a campaigner against nuclear weapons for a very long time, probably the 70s.
Yes.
Yes. She was convener of the Peace March Scotland.
Yes.
Which you might care to tell us something about, as I couldn't find out anything about it. That was the same year that the Faslane Peace Camp was created. She was also a contributor to a book published in 2022, which she just happens to have, probably a pile of them somewhere, called Diverse Voices Challenging Injustice, Banner Tales from Glasgow, which explores the city's contribution to political protest through the stories of people who took part. After retiring from social work, she began to work actively with asylum seekers and refugees on a voluntary basis.
Well, today I'm here as Grandmother of the Burning Hearth, which was a title given to me as Scotland's senior Indigenous grandmother by the Grandmothers Circle the Earth Foundation. And it is our mission to save the planet for the next 7 generations. And as a grandmother of 9 and a great-grandmother of 2, I have a great vested interest in doing just that. I first met my father in 1946 when I was 3 years old. And I remember the occasion vividly, him running up the ramp from Waverley Station, and out of his kit bag he gave me a koala bear, and I still have that koala bear. I was born into a generation where the ethos was, you don't talk about that. So questions were never asked about the war. And there were 2 photographs of my father that he would show about the war. One was in Australia with a bunch of lovely young sailors. He was in the Navy, and we thought the place was called Standby, because that's what he always referred to it. That was on standby. And the next photograph was him standing outside a hospital in New Zealand with a brace on his neck. And anytime we asked him about that, he'd say, oh, they taught me how to walk again. But there was nothing ever asked about that. We weren't allowed to ask. And during the years of my upbringing, I was very aware that there was a very disturbed man who would be triggered very easily into tears. Sometimes it would be something on the television or something I would say, and suddenly he would just go into tears. But again, my mother would say, don't ask. So I had another brother, 2 sisters, and we all went our way, got married, had children. And I spent 10 years in Africa as a school teacher, came back with 4 children in 1975, and saw a very different country to the one that I had left in 1965. A country that had become very materialist and capitalist and competitive and stuff. In Africa, nothing got wasted. It either got recycled or made into something else or cooked on, you know. So I was shocked. So we decided not to live either in Edinburgh, my home city, or Derby, my husband's home city. We decided to go to a lovely little village in the southwest of Scotland called Penpunt. In a very short time, I found that the plans were to dump nuclear waste from Chapel Cross in the Galloway Hills. And I remember something inside me just rose up. And I remember thinking, over my dead body. Because the local populace was saying, oh good, we'll get jobs. Oh good, there'll be a proper infrastructure in Dumfries and Galloway now. I had seen what had happened in colonial Africa under the guise of progress. As a school teacher, I eventually felt quite compromised by being part of that. So my eyes were opened to what was how people were deluded into thinking jobs and this is all. No. So I got very involved, and anytime the conversation came up in my home in Edinburgh about my activities or the fact I was regularly arrested, my father would just and walk out the room. So I presumed it was disapproval. This carried on until 1978. It was his 60th birthday. My brother was still in Africa with 2 children, but we all made the effort and came to the house to be with him. And for the first time, being an Englishman, he wasn't a whiskey drinker, but someone had given him a good bottle of malt, and we had a lovely meal, and my brother phoned from Africa, and we were all part of the phone call. It wasn't an easy thing in 1978. But after we were sitting relaxed, my father was a wee bit oozy with the whiskey. Somebody brought up my latest arrest, this time in Downing Street. I'd been down there with Bruce Kent and I was arrested in Downing Street. And suddenly my father did the same thing. Got up and walked out the house, and I thought, oh, I've spoiled his birthday. So I felt the need to go out into the back garden to apologise. I went down the stairs and I was expecting to see the usual sort of angry man. And as I approached his back, I could see he was trembling. Someone put the bathroom light on, and as I turned round, his face was, I can only call it beaming. He was smiling and he was looking up at the sky, and I said, are you okay, Dad? Because for the first time ever, we'd got together as a family, all the grandchildren, all the children, we were there for him. And he said, if it hadn't been for a man in Japan with a yellow cord on his wrist, you would be my only child. I hadn't a clue what he was talking about. We got back to the party, and a few weeks later my father collapsed at work, and a brain tumour was diagnosed, and we decided we'd take him home. It was inoperable. And for the last 10 days of his life, I got the story. Standby in Australia, they'd been there since late May in 45. They knew something was happening, and they were off doing holidays and what have you, but suddenly they were all called in July. Right, you're here for what we're here to do. Long story short, he found himself outside Hiroshima. There were big hospital ships outside in the sea, big American hospital ships, and the whole thing was disguised or explained as a mercy mission. The war is over, the emperor has surrendered, now we will go in and tend to the sick and the survivors. And they had all these little small, I think they call them liberty ships, and my father was in charge of one. And they had to take on these wounded people with one rule. They all had to have the same colour of band on their wrist. There was black, there was white, there was yellow, there was red. Didn't matter if you were a child, an old person, if you were walking wounded, if you were on a stretcher, that boat had to have only that colour of wristband. No explanation given. And then they went backwards and forwards and took these people to the big hospital ships out at sea. They were exhausted. It was night time. My father doesn't know what happened. the boat that he was on suddenly upended and everybody was thrown off. He was wearing a very heavy tool belt with all these tools. He was a tool maker and he was an engineer on the ship. And he found himself sinking. And even then, he told me in that last 10 days of his life, he says, I hadn't even seen my daughter. He'd never seen me. I'd been born when he was away. He'd never seen his only child. And that was his last thought as he sank. Suddenly he felt himself being yanked to the surface. Dawn was coming up and he found he couldn't even use his arms to help this person who was rescuing him. Something was wrong with his body, it wasn't working. But he was on his back, the person was on their back and taking it in turn, putting one arm and then the other arm. And as the light came up, he realised the arm that came over had a yellow band. His life was being saved by an enemy, a Japanese enemy. He got to shore. Military police took away the man with the armband. He was put on a stretcher because he couldn't walk. And as he passed this man, he bowed. And my father couldn't even respond because he was paralysed. Something had happened in the back of his neck. I got all the details of that story. Anytime my mother came into the bedroom, he'd immediately stop. He never told her, and I realised for his own reasons. My brother was still in Africa. He got back the day before my father died. So I was the only one in the family who knew this. And you are the first group that I have publicly shared this story with. I then said to him, now I understand why you were so angry every time the word nuclear came into the conversation. He said, no, Margaret, I was not angry with you. I was angry with the fact that I was told a lie and I was part of something that was not true. And it was through my father that I learned these two bombs were two very different bombs. And the American hospital ships waiting to look after the wounded. And the colour of the bands were to denote one thing, their distance from the epicentre. And it was an exercise to see the effect on a population of nuclear weapons. One nuclear, one atomic. And they were saying, doesn't matter if that was your wife, you go that way because you're red, because you were 10 miles away, and you go that way, you're black. And by the time they got onto the ships, they could then measure what was the effect on a populace of a nuclear weapon. He was part of an experiment. This was not the mercy mission that had been painted. And that's why every time the conversation came to nuclear, he had to walk out the room because it brought all that back. And I thanked him for explaining that to me. And one of his last words to me was, you go on, lass, you're doing a bloody good job. So I did. We were very successful in stopping them dumping nuclear waste in the Galloway Hills. Tell you wonderful stories about that. Gaia herself helped, you can look this up, and sent a nice 6.4 on the Richter scale earth tremor that proved that these hills were not seismically stable and therefore not fit for the top to be taken off and huge boreholes and filled with nuclear waste, and nobody will know it's there. Well, my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren will know it's there, and they'll be paying the price of that. On the back of that, Billy Wolfe invited me to come to an AGM to talk about a Scottish Peace March, and I was elected convener on the basis of the success we'd had with the anti-nuclear, the dumping. And on the back of that, of course, with people like Brian and really setting an example of what the individual can do, who were instrumental as well in helping the Fastlane Peace Camp get set up. And it's now the longest standing peace camp in the whole world. And to finish on a wonderful note, I realised my mother knew nothing about this. For me, the miracle happened in Stirling. My 11-year-old daughter Gwen, who's sadly no longer with us, she was a fiddler then, and she was a fiddler when she died. she was accompanying the march, and my mother was watching the progress of the march on television or radio at night. They were following it. Suddenly in Stirling, my mother appeared. Margaret, your dad would be burning in his grave at what you're doing just now, and I'm taking this lassie home with me, you see. Suddenly two of the Buddhist monks were just beside me, you know, and she's ranting on about, you know, the shame I'm bringing on the family, but the number of times I'd been arrested, etc., etc. And I realised the time had come, and I said, Mum, what you don't know, but what I'm going to tell you now. And I told her. And I had to go off. I was going off to a radio station, so I had to go, but I knew that my 11-year-old daughter was in the safekeeping with these two Buddhist monks. When I came back, I was initially quite frightened because they weren't there. They appeared, and the Buddhist monks had gone with my daughter and my mother into Stirling to the charity shops for my mother to buy walking shoes and raincoats and what have you. And my mother walked all the way from Stirling to Glasgow to Hamilton to Edinburgh, and she was very much the darling of the match by the end of it. So miracles can happen, and I'm looking at you all, and you're all of a certain age. We've somehow got to get this through to our young folk, that this world is very precarious, but it starts with us. We have to remove that sense of helplessness or avoidance that people get into their phones. We have to get them involved. I work, as it's said, with refugees and asylum seekers. I'm only 81, so I'm approaching my prime, but it's these people that keep me young. We create gardens. I've spent my whole social work pension fund on creating gardens, bairns and bees, and will remember me long after anything else, because with their help we've created green spaces. These people are now Scots, and they can say to their children, I planted that tree, I made that green space. And I'm delighted to be part of something that is starting again with a seed. And it's those seeds, whether it's the seed of a tree or the seed of an idea, and above all, the seed of an example that will give our young people life is worth living. Bless you.
Thank you.
And the event finished with a couple more songs from Protest in Harmony.
Last night I had the strangest dream I never dreamed before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war. I dreamed I saw a mighty room. This room was filled with men, and the paper they were signing said they'd never fight again. Last night I had the strangest dream I never dreamed before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war. And when the papers were all signed and 1,000,000 copies made, they all joined hands and bowed their heads, and grateful prayers were said. Last night I had the strangest dream I never dreamed before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war. And the people in the streets below were dancing round and round, and swords and guns and uniforms were scattered on the ground. Last night I had the strangest dream I never dreamed before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war. Last night I had the strangest dream I never dreamed before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war.
One more.
can mix the mood and the music for a million dancing feet. We can save the dying children with our pictures from the sky. We can make ourselves take action, and we only have to try. Yes, we are the human miracle, we are magic in the sky. We can save ourselves and save the world, and we only have to try. We can bend the turning river to give every field its dream. We can find the soil together and grow the deserts green. We can gather plants and creatures and the earth and sea and sky. We can use the world more wisely, and we only have to try. Yes, we are the human miracle with our magic in the sky. We can save ourselves and save the world, and we only have to try. We can build a peace with justice. We can turn bones into bread. We can step back from the cliff top where the nuclear walls have led. We can fix ourselves a future, not a missile in the sky. We can tame our fears and poverty, and we only have to try. Yes, we are the human miracle, with our magic in the sky. We can save ourselves and save the world, and we only have to try. We can reach our rock and rhythm in every city and street. We can mix the mood and the music for a million dancing feet. We can save the dying children with our pictures from the sky. We can make ourselves take action, and we only have to try. Yes, we are the human miracle with our magic in the sky. We can save ourselves and save the world, and we only have to try. Yes, we are the human miracle with our magic in the sky. We can save ourselves and save the world, and we only have to try.
And that was the end of this year's event, one of many happening right across Scotland. If you'd like to watch the video version of that, you'll find it on our YouTube channel. And we'll also put the link to Scottish CND and the Mayors for Peace project in the notes. And hopefully we'll see you all at the 80th anniversary next year. We'll be back again next week with another podcast. So catch you later. Bye now.